Possessions of Putressa by SM Dotson. Martin Salzburg, the town exorcist, has developed a strange theory regarding demon possession, too revolutionary to share with fellow Christians. In the small town of Putressa, Martin discovers a local legend that takes him on a journey to find the ghost of Seymour Downcross, and to discover why the centuries-old villain is using an orphanage for his occult endeavors. Excerpts from Chapter 1. Putressa, Alsace, on the French-German border, 1867. What began as a weekly lesson in conversational Alsatian, a dialect of Low German, ended with a gem, easily missed, lodged in the memory of Randall Nabelhus. Randall told a story of a strange night in a dark forest. A simple, curious tale. Martin Salzburg, the town exorcist, heard something in the story, a thread to something greater that would shape the rest of his days. The Nabelhus children were terrorizing the family dog and ignoring their elders. Dr. Martin Salzburg, Randall's guest, sat attentive with a small notebook in his hand. When I was 17, the Gaslights first came to Putressa, Randall said. On those summer nights, a fanfare band played on weekends. Some would sit out and read, some would drink. Methuselah Street from Valhalla to Tartarus had the most activity. There were vendors at night in the square, policemen walking, a man riding a giant tricycle around, and even the children were outside since it was summer. It was that same year the Duke of Fürchterlich Marsch desired to free county land for hunting, so he issued a corpse tax on the cemeteries around old towns like Putressa. The surrounding forests were too swampy for the aristo scum, so they needed more room. They charged descendants an outrageous fee for every ancestor in a cemetery outside of town. People began to dig up their ancestors and bury them under their own yards and homes. A few of the Protestant families even burned the remains instead of reburying them. Wealthy Catholics always buried their dead under the church grounds, another reason to look down on Lutherans, I suppose. Putressa Town Council did not want townspeople digging up and carrying coffins during the day, so night gave way to the dirty coffins, traveling on the backs of wagons. The gaslights came just in time to shine light on the horrid procession. This is how the Protestants of the town became wealthy suddenly, but they deny it. People took valuables from the corpses of their ancestors and beautified their homes and wardrobes with the profits. That treasure came with a curse, I say. They shouldn't have stolen from the dead. Plus, it makes us Lutherans look greedy and base. That's how we perceive Catholics. So to have it turned the other way around was appalling to me. The small dog let out a yelp, squirmed out of tiny hands, and ran out of the room. The kids chased after the poor creature. I was there when it happened, Randall continued. There were children in the street on a July full moon. But they were not playing in the square near the band like usual. Children wandered the street, claiming to be looking for their home or calling out names of people who were long dead. The town has forgotten the details, except what ended up in the newspaper. What year is this? Dr. Martin Salzburg asked into his tiny notebook. That was the same year King George died. What happened in the forest? The children were in the kitchen and let out a cheer. The little dog began barking under what sounded like a metal bucket. Get Fritz out of that thing, Randall yelled in his schoolmaster's voice. The excitement liberated some of the mucus from his lungs. He coughed into his handkerchief for a short while. Upon recovery, he continued the story. A group of children were trespassing on county land, so the barony guard became involved. Kids were found burying old jewelry stolen from their parents, the same jewelry taken from the family corpses. Many years after that, I concluded that those kids were trying to get rid of that curse. One of those kids, William, he was my best friend. They tied him up to a tree.
What were they up to? Martin asked.
They thought William was his evil ancestor, Seymour Downcross. William was changed that night. Will was never the same. I asked him about it, but he shrugged me off. He didn't want anything to do with me or the others after that.
Is he a member of the church? Asked Martin. Doesn't sound familiar.
No, and that is something else about Will, Randall said with a slight snarl on his lips. He's Catholic now. Martin thought he could hear a distant scream, like it came from the ground below.
He converted? Asked Martin.
After the incident, he forgot about his friends, what his parents taught him, and went straight into the arms of the Roman Church.
Blessed Mary's?
Latin Mass and all. He lives in that big house on Snatcher. With that iron gate, he runs an orphanage out of it.
Wealthy family, I take it?
Like I said, after the corpse tax, some people got rich. The Downcrosses reburied a half dozen of their ancestors under the house. Who knows how much jewelry they found? I think Will might have taken some of the valuables from the other kids and hid them away too. I don't know.
Why do you say that?
Well, his wealth and the simple fact he didn't want anything to do with us after that night. Didn't even go to the same church anymore. He started referring to himself as Seymour II, after his infamous ancestor.
I'm sure the incident was a shock to him, said Martin. He had to deal with it somehow.
Well said, but I think those families were cursed for stealing the jewelry of their ancestors. William's family exhumed and reburied the body of that evil ancestor of theirs, Seymour Downcross. He is the one who burned the original Lutheran church a long time ago.
I haven't heard of him, said Martin.
When those kids were found in the forest, my father was there. He heard Cousin Louis say that the Lord brought us back so we could bury Seymour again.
How terrible, said Martin. No wonder William stopped talking to his peers. Those kids thought he was his own evil ancestor.
Maybe so.
Do any of the people from that night in the forest still live in town?
Most of them are dead, Randall said. One died fighting in a war, and then there was the suicide pact between Matthias, Mark, Louis, and Johannes.
All 4 of them committed suicide? Martin asked.
That is what the constables said. And they did it all in the same room at the same time.
Terrible, said Martin. Did you know these men?
I grew up with them. Putressa is small. I saw the body of Louis as he was a cousin. At the funeral, it looked like his head was dented and there was a cut on his forehead. They said he hit his head after they all took the poison. Maybe the boys were ruined from that night in the forest. Maybe they knew something. Maybe they were murdered. I don't know. It was a long time ago. It was then Rosamond Nadelhouse, the English-born wife of Randall, appeared out of the cellar with the severed head of a pig. She threw the fleshy pink mass from her position on the cellar stairs through the air. The pig head rotated in space as it flew. For a split second, the eyes of Martin and the severed head met. Its gaze was dull, and the mouth seemed to have a slight grin. It landed on the kitchen table. The old piece of furniture shuddered and skidded across the floor under the momentum of the pig head.
"Leave that poor dog alone!"
Rosamond screamed at the kids. The children became despondent, backed away from their victim, and pressed their backs against the kitchen wall.
Oh, hello, Dr. Salzburg. Would you like to stay for supper?
Rosamond asked as she scooped up the unsuspecting dog, released him into the cellar, and let the door drop with a thud. The little dog whimpered in the darkness. Possessions of Putressa by SM Dotson.